Eldon is sitting in his car in a hospital parking lot in Richmond, Virginia, Monday afternoon, 3:30. He just walked out of his annual checkup, cholesterol under control, blood pressure solid, knees still working. His doctor said the one sentence every 67-year-old retiree wants to hear: "You're in great shape for your age. Go enjoy yourself." Eldon starts the car. Before backing out, he opens the glove compartment for his sunglasses. Underneath the owner's manual, there's a brochure from an Alaska cruise line. He and his wife picked it up at a travel expo in 2018. She circled the 14-day itinerary in red pen, wrote in the corner, "When you retire, no excuses." She died in 2022. He retired in 2024. The brochure is still there. He grabs the sunglasses every day. He hasn't opened the brochure once. $683,000 in his account. Perfect health. And a man who can't give himself permission to spend a single dollar because 40 years of financial discipline built a muscle he doesn't know how to turn off. A few weeks ago, Eldon's daughter left a book on his living room table. Black cover, provocative title, Die with Zero. He read the title and almost returned it. It sounded irresponsible. It sounded like the opposite of everything he'd built. But he opened it, and 3 chapters in, something cracked. It didn't convince him to blow through everything. It did something worse. It made him realize that maybe the mistake of his life wasn't earning too little, investing wrong, or retiring too late. The mistake was never learning to use what he built, and that every year he waits, the window to fix it gets smaller. Not because of money, because of biology. In this video, I'm going to show you why most American retirees die with more money than they had when they retired. What the book Die with Zero reveals about the real cost of never spending, and the concrete steps to build a plan that gives you permission to live without any risk of ruin. If you're between 55 and 70, you've got more than $300,000 invested, and you keep telling yourself it's not time yet, this video will change how you think about every dollar sitting in your account. But Eldon's story isn't unusual. It's actually the norm, and the numbers behind it are worse than you think. Here's the data. The Employee Benefit Research Institute, one of the most respected retirement research organizations in the country, released a study in 2026 tracking how retirees actually spend their savings over decades. What they found should make you uncomfortable. Among retirees who entered retirement with $500,000 or more, 6 out of 10 still had at least 80% of their assets untouched after a full decade. Not partially spent, not mostly gone, 80% or more sitting there, and 45% of them actually had more money than when they started. Nearly half. They could have been living, traveling, helping their kids, replacing that kitchen, taking that cruise. Instead, they ended up richer than when they retired. Not because they planned to, because the fear of spending never went away. And it gets worse. By their mid-80s, a full third of all retirees still had 100% or more of their original savings. They saved their entire lives for a retirement they were too scared to use. An earlier EBRI study painted an even sharper picture. Among retirees who entered retirement with $500,000 or more in non-housing assets, the median household had spent down only 11.8% after 20 full years. 20 years, barely touched. So why does this happen? It's not stupidity. It's not even stubbornness. It's 3 structural forces working together, and none of them are in your interest. Force 1. The financial industry earns fees on assets under management. Every dollar you keep invested is a dollar they charge a percentage on. Every dollar you spend is revenue they lose. Their incentive structurally, mathematically, inevitably is for you to never spend your money. Nobody at your brokerage firm gets a bonus when you book a vacation. Force 2. Longevity fear is systematically calibrated too high. Every retirement calculator you've ever used assumes you live to 93, 95, sometimes 97. The actual life expectancy for a 65-year-old man in the United States is about 83. For a woman, about 86. That's the CDC's most recent data, 2024. Those calculators aren't protecting you from poverty. They're protecting the industry from losing your assets to your own life. Force 3. Nobody teaches the transition from accumulator to decumulator. You spent 40 years building the saving muscle. Your entire identity, responsible, disciplined, careful, was forged around the act of putting money away. And then one day you're supposed to reverse it. Spend what you saved. Enjoy what you accumulated. But nobody ever trained that muscle. Nobody even told you it existed. Think of Eldon's portfolio like a gas tank. For 40 years, every paycheck was another gallon. The needle moved right. That felt good. That felt safe. Now retirement says, drive. Use the gas. Go somewhere. But Eldon can't stop staring at the gauge. He'd rather sit in the driveway with a full tank than risk seeing it drop below 3/4. The car is in perfect condition. The roads are clear. And the tank is completely, perfectly, uselessly full. But here's what makes this truly expensive, and it's not what you think. The real cost of hoarding your savings isn't financial. It's biological. Every year you wait, the price of every experience goes up. Not in dollars, in what your body has to pay to have it. Here's something the retirement industry doesn't emphasize because it directly undermines the core product they're selling you, which is fear. Researcher David Blanchett analyzed decades of spending data from the Rand Health and Retirement Study and found something that contradicts almost every retirement projection you've ever seen. He found that retirees don't spend the same amount throughout retirement. They spend less every year. In real inflation-adjusted terms, real spending drops about 1% per year in the first decade after 65. Then it accelerates, dropping closer to 2% per year through the slow-go years, roughly your mid-70s to mid-80s. Then it decelerates slightly at the end. But the total trajectory is overwhelmingly downward. By age 84, the average retiree is spending 26% less in real terms than they were at 65. 26% less. That's not a minor adjustment. That's a quarter of your spending gone. Naturally, the Bureau of Labor Statistics confirms it from a completely different data set. Average annual expenditures for households aged 55 to 64, $56,267 for 65 to 74. $48,885, a 13% drop for 75 and older. $36,673, another 25% decline. From peak working years to late retirement, total spending falls by more than a third. Researchers call this the retirement spending smile. High spending in the early go-go years, that's your 60s and early 70s, when you're traveling, renovating, eating out, playing golf. A significant dip in the slow-go years, mid-70s to mid-80s, as energy declines and activity slows naturally. A slight uptick at the very end for healthcare. But the total accumulated spending across a full retirement is dramatically less than what every standard retirement projection assumes. And that's the biological cost nobody talks about. At 65, that Alaska cruise cost Eldon a plane ticket and a suitcase. At 80, it costs him a plane ticket, a wheelchair escort, travel insurance with medical evacuation coverage, a companion who can help him on and off the ship, and the physical energy of someone half his age. Same trip. Completely different price, not in dollars, but in what his body has to pay. You're saving money for a future version of yourself that will spend less, not more. The fear assumes linear spending, that you'll need as much at 82 as you did at 67. The data says otherwise. Reality is a declining curve. And every year you wait, you're not protecting yourself from ruin. You're protecting money that will never get used from being used. Here's a question worth sitting with. You spent 40 years learning how to save. How many hours total across your entire adult life did you spend learning how to spend? For most people, the answer is 0. And that's not an accident. It's by design. The entire financial services industry is built around accumulation. 401ks, IRAs, target date funds, dollar cost averaging, compound interest calculators, employer match programs. Every product, every tool, every advertisement, every piece of advice you've received for 4 decades has said the same thing. Put more in, keep your hands off, let it grow. Now ask yourself, where is the target spend fund? Where is the product that teaches you how to draw down intelligently? Where is the calculator that tells you how much you can enjoy, not just how much you should fear? It doesn't exist. Not because it's impossible, because decumulation means assets leave the platform. And when assets leave, fees leave with them. No firm is going to build a product that cannibalizes its own revenue. The research confirms the gap. David Blanchett and Michael Finke, 2 of the most cited researchers in retirement finance, published a study in 2025 showing that the average 65-year-old married couple withdraws just 2.1% of their portfolio per year. Singles, even less, 1.9%. Both numbers are roughly half of what the widely accepted 4% rule says is safe. Nearly 80% of all their lifetime spending comes not from their savings, but from Social Security, pensions, and part-time wages. They're treating their life savings like an emergency fund, not a source of life, a locked vault they can see but won't open. A separate survey by Corebridge Financial found that fewer than 1 in 3 Americans approaching retirement have any kind of plan, any plan at all, for how to withdraw their savings once they stop working. And only 31% even know what the word decumulation means. The industry built a word for it, but never taught anyone the concept. The same discipline that made you wealthy is now the thing preventing you from using your wealth. The saver identity was a feature for 40 years. Now it's a bug, and nobody issued a patch. Eldon built the perfect engine, tuned it for decades, maintained it obsessively, but nobody ever taught him to actually drive the car. The engine runs flawlessly. The tank is full, and the car hasn't left the garage in 2 years. Let me ask you something that most financial advisors won't. When does money change someone's life the most? At 30, when your kid is drowning in student loans, stuck renting because they can't scrape together a down payment, or sitting on a business idea they can't fund? Or at 60, when your kid's mortgage is mostly paid, the children are grown, and the inheritance goes straight into the same kind of account you kept it in for decades? The data makes this painfully clear. Federal Reserve research shows the bulk of American inheritances land between ages 56 and 75. The peak is around 60. In 1989, the average age of receiving an inheritance was 41. Now it's 51 and climbing, because people are living longer. Your children will receive your money later than any generation before them. The Penn-Wharton budget model went deeper. They found that the largest average inheritances, around $190,000, go to heirs between the ages of 56 and 75. By that age, the money supplements. It doesn't transform. It gets deposited, invested, and held the same cycle your parents taught you, now repeating one generation later. The average American inheritance is about $46,000. At 30, that's a down payment that changes a life. At 60, it's a line item in a portfolio that's already established. Bill Perkins, the author of Die with Zero, calls this the concept of memory dividends. Every experience you fund generates compounding emotional returns over the remainder of your life. A family trip when your kids are 10 produces 30 years of shared stories, inside jokes, and photographs on the wall. That same trip when your kids are 50 produces a nice weekend. Same dollars. Radically different returns. You're not leaving your children an inheritance. You're leaving them money they'll receive too late to change their trajectory. And you're doing it because nobody gave you a framework for doing it differently. Eldon's tank is full. His kids' tanks are running on fumes right now. Mortgages, daycare, student debt. He could transfer 10 gallons today and change their entire decade. Instead, he's planning to leave them 70 gallons after he doesn't need a car anymore. By then, they'll have their own full tanks, and the 70 gallons will sit there again, unused, waiting for the next generation to be too afraid to touch them. So, what does this look like when it's not theory? When it's your money, your age, your situation? Let me break this into 3 scenarios, and one of them is yours. You've been responsible your whole career. You've saved into your 401k, maybe an IRA. You've got Social Security coming or already started. You can cover your essential expenses, housing, food, insurance, utilities. But everything, discretionary travel, hobbies, gifts, home projects, feels like a risk. So you defer. You tell yourself, maybe next year, when the market is better, when I feel safer. Here's what the math actually says. With the spending smile in effect, meaning your real expenses will decline naturally every single year, and Social Security covering the bulk of your base needs, a withdrawal rate between 3.5% and 4% gives you a better than 90% probability of your money lasting 30 years. That's not optimism. That's Monte Carlo simulation across thousands of market scenarios. But you're not withdrawing 4%, you're probably withdrawing less than 2%. You're optimizing for a worst-case scenario that has a 5 to 10% chance of materializing, and in the process, you're sacrificing the best-case scenario that's happening right now, your go-go years. The ones where you have the energy, the joints, the mobility, and the curiosity to actually do things. Those years don't come back. The market might recover from a bad year. Your knees won't. Let me put a number on it. Say you've got $400,000 invested and you want to take a $6,000 trip 2 weeks in the national parks with your spouse. That's 1.5% of your portfolio. 1.5%. Meanwhile, the average annual return on a balanced portfolio over the last 30 years has been north of 7%. You'd likely make that $6,000 back and then some before the photos are even printed. But you won't go, because the idea of the number getting smaller, even temporarily, triggers something that has nothing to do with math. It's identity. It's the saver in you refusing to let go. Here's what I want you to do. Identify one experience you've been putting off. One trip, one project, one thing. Calculate the cost. Compare it to 1% of your portfolio. If it's less, and it almost certainly is, book it. You won't feel it financially, but you'll feel it in every other way that counts. This is Eldon's territory. $680,000. Social Security covering roughly 70% of his essential expenses. Portfolio sitting untouched for 2 full years. The gap between what he could withdraw safely and what he actually withdraws is enormous. If you're here, the problem isn't money, the problem is permission. The Blanchett and Finke research shows this bracket clearly. Retirees at this level withdraw an average of about 2% when they could safely pull 4% or more. That's not prudence, that's half your life's work sitting dormant. On a $680,000 portfolio, the difference between a 2% and a 4% withdrawal is $13,600 per year. That's a 2-week trip. That's a kitchen renovation. That's helping your daughter with a down payment. That's not abstract money. That's a year of living that you left on the table and that you can't get back. The number in your account isn't wealth. It's potential wealth. It becomes real wealth only when it funds something that matters to you. Until then, it's digits on a screen that make you feel safe while the years slide past. At some point, a full tank in a parked car stops being an asset. It becomes a monument to all the places you never went. Every month that Eldon doesn't use his money, the tank stays full and the list of places he can still go gets one line shorter. This isn't about emptying your accounts for your kids. This is about strategic timing. How much of what you're hoarding could change your children's lives right now? A down payment on their first house? Student loan payoff that frees up $800 a month of cash flow? Seed capital for a business they've been talking about for 3 years. $50,000 given to a 32-year-old as a down payment on their first home generates decades of equity, stability, and compounding. That same $50,000 inherited at 60 goes into a brokerage account they already have and earns modest returns for a few years. Same dollars. Completely different impact. Bill Perkins calls this giving with warm hands instead of cold ones. You get to see the impact. You get to watch your daughter's face when she closes on a house. You get to hear your son say his student loans are gone. Those are memory dividends and they compound for you too, not just for them. If you can give 5 to 10% of your portfolio today and it won't change your retirement security, the real question isn't whether to give it. The question is why you haven't already. Your kids won't remember the number in the will. They'll remember the moment you changed their life while you were still there to see it. So, what do you actually do with this? 4 steps. Not theory, not platitudes, specific actions you can take this week. Step 1. Calculate your enough number. Take your real annual spending, not a projection, not what you spent during your peak earning years, your actual current spending right now. Subtract your Social Security income and any pension income. That gap is your target. Multiply it by 25. If your portfolio covers that number, you have enough, period. The excess isn't a safety cushion. It's money that's dying in your account instead of living in your life. Run the numbers. If your gap is $15,000 a year, multiply by 25, that's $375,000. If your portfolio is $600,000, you have $225,000 more than enough. That excess can fund experiences, gifts, projects, and living without touching your safety floor. Step 2, invert the question. Stop asking how much can I safely withdraw without running out. Start asking how much do I need to spend to avoid dying with money I never used. That single reframe from fear of spending to fear of wasting changes everything about how you see your balance. It's the same math. It's a completely different psychology. Step 3, front load your go-go years. The first 5 to 8 years of retirement are your highest energy, highest mobility, highest health window. That's when travel is easiest, home projects are most satisfying, social activities are most enjoyable, and your body cooperates. Spend more now, less later. The Spending Smile data proves this happens naturally anyway. Expenses decline every year. But most retirees fight it. They hold back in their best years because the instinct to keep the tank full overrides the data sitting right in front of them. Step 4. Have the heritage conversation. This week, sit down with your adult children. Ask them one question. What would change your life right now if I gave you a specific amount of money? If the answer is a down payment, paying off debt, or funding a business that's a transfer with real, measurable, life-altering impact, not a line item in a will that your estate attorney reads in a conference room after you're gone. And if the idea of spending more still makes your stomach turn if the saver identity runs that deep, there's a strategy called guardrails that gives you a built-in safety mechanism with automatic spending adjustments. Your spending goes up when the market is up, down when it drops. I covered it in detail in a previous video. The link is in the description. It's the closest thing to a permission slip that financial planning has ever produced. So why doesn't anyone tell you this? This video started with a simple question. Why do so many American retirees die with more money than when they stopped working? And now you have the answer. It's not one reason, it's a system. The financial industry profits from your assets, not your experiences. Your advisor earns a percentage of what you keep invested. Every dollar you spend is a dollar they stop charging fees on. The calculators assume you live to 95 and spend at a constant rate. Both assumptions are wrong, and both keep you saving longer than you need to. And nobody, not your employer, not your 401k provider, not your financial planner, ever taught you the skill of spending down, because teaching you to decumulate means teaching you to take money off their platform. They're not villains, they're incentives. But their incentives and your best life are pointing in opposite directions. And now you know that, think about it. Who teaches a class on spending well? Not your 401k provider, they made money every year you contributed. Not your target date fund, it was designed to grow, not to be emptied. Not your financial advisor unless they've specifically built a decumulation plan for you, and most haven't, because most were trained in the same accumulation first model you were. The whole ecosystem is a one-way conveyor belt that moves money in. Nobody built a conveyor belt that moves it out with purpose, with confidence, with a plan that doesn't trigger panic every time the balance drops. Die with Zero doesn't tell you to be reckless. It tells you to stop confusing the tool with the goal. Money was always supposed to be a tool, a means to fund experiences, relationships, comfort, and meaning. Somewhere along the way, for Eldon, for you, for most people watching this, the tool became the goal. The number became the point. It was never supposed to be the point. The brochure is still in Eldon's glove compartment. The cruise line probably doesn't even run that same 14-day itinerary anymore. But that's not the point. The point is that his wife wrote, "No excuses" in the corner of that brochure, and for 2 years, Eldon's only excuse has been a number on a screen that keeps going up while the days he can use it keep going down. You now understand something most retirees never figure out. The goal was never to die with the most money. The goal was to die with the most life. 6 out of 10 retirees with $500,000 still have 80% of it untouched a decade later. A third reach their mid-80s with everything they started with or more. Eldon is on track to be another number in that statistic, unless he decides to be something else. Unless you decide to be something else. Die with Zero doesn't mean be reckless. It means stop being so careful that you forget to live. The money was always a tool, not the destination. And the brochure in the glove compartment, the one with no excuses written in red pen, that was never about Alaska. It was about permission. Permission Eldon's wife tried to give him before she ran out of time to give it. If this changed how you think about your retirement savings, leave a comment. I read every one. The question now is, what's the first thing you'd do if you gave yourself permission to spend?